this is the complete motor mounting system. You just saw me making the studs. These screw in around the perimeter of the face mount on the motor there. And they have jam nuts on them, but those are left loose for now. So you get the 3 in there. Then they're also threaded at the top. These are both M3 threads, by the way. So there's the holes in the plywood. This goes up against there. Screws come in from the outside to lock that down, and then adjust it so it's actually true. And then the jam nuts can be cranked down. And then through the central hole, the thread on the driven spinner can be fed through and then screwed down into the adapter there. And the adjustment can be played with back and forth, so this cranks down just before it starts to actually hit the plywood and create unwanted friction. And I've got it on one, and it looks pretty good. So that's it for the motor mounting. I think that's all ready to go. Here's the test bed one that I got working first before finishing all the machining. Just a simple 12-volt motor, 30 RPM. Which is maybe a bit slower than what ideal, but I think it'll work fine. So you can see how that mounts there. And then on the front, it's driving that spinner, which is magnetically driving all the others. And so that's a pretty complete hexagonal panel. I won't use this one, but that's more or less what they'll look like. So next up, I need to start working on a nice frame and stand for them. Just cut out the first set for the hexagon frames. After a bit of confusion, realizing that there's a chirality thing where I can't just flip the piece upside down back and forth. But it all worked out in the end, and I've got plenty of this angle iron. This was for gimbal maze, and I didn't end up using any of it, so I've got meters and meters of this stuff up on top of one of my shelves, so I'm happy to burn through some of it. So let's get the other 12 pieces cut. Here we go, all 18 pieces cut out, and this is roughly the arrangement they'll be in separate panels. So next time to drill a bunch of mounting holes in them. Next up is drilling the mounting holes. This is where the frames will be bolted onto the stands. There are 3 of them, 3 holes, and just on one piece per hexagon. So I've did 6 pieces. I'm going to do the same thing again where I just swap out the pieces because moving the mill back and forth that much takes a lot of time. And these are 3/8 inch holes. Okay, slight embarrassment. I am at the one far end of the mill travel up against the limit switch, and I am 0.2 inches away from where I need to be. I thought I had set up the piece taking that into account. Apparently I didn't. So I'm going to have to adjust the stop over about 1 inch or whatever, just make sure this time, and then re-pick up our center hole to re-zero it. And when I drill the frame pieces, the mounting pieces, the stand, that's what I'm calling it. When I drill the stand pieces, I'll need to be more careful and take this into account. Same thing again, this time with the part of the stand that will bolt on to the frame bits we just drilled. Again, 3/16, no, 3/8, excuse me, 3/8. I'm only going to do one of them right now because I messed up the steel order and don't have enough to make all the stands at once. So I'm just going to do one and make sure it all works. So let's get this done. Okay, this is now really embarrassing because I did the same thing twice. Again, I can't get quite over far enough to where I need to drill, and I thought I'd be fine because it was working on these pieces, but these pieces have the bevel there. So the whole thing goes over farther. So I gotta do that same stupid trick again of picking up that hole. Now you can see how this is going to mount from the frame to the stand. These are just temporary bolts. What I had on hand, of course, I'll get something nicer. So you might have been wondering about why this weird offset. Just because I'm worried about the thing on top flexing a lot, so I wanted a bit more, you know, as much as possible to get a bit more bite on that. But I couldn't go too far up because of the plywood panel that's going to be riveted on the inside of this, which will be sticking in some. So this seemed like a good compromise. And this will only be barely visible. This is on the underside. So the taller one, you'll be able to see it, but as long as it looks clean and neat, I think it'll be fine. So I think it's time to weld up one of the frames. But first, I guess it's time to clear off the welding table, because that's not going to work. Yeah, that's a lot better. So, pretty simple goal here, just to roll these up in a nice hexagon. I'll be checking the angle on each junction before I weld with this combo square. Set to 60 degrees, of course, or 120 in that configuration, but whatever. Yeah, I'm a little bit uncertain about how much I want to weld this seam, because you'll get the heat affected area visible on the other side, and I'm not sure if that's how I want it to look. Luckily this whole thing doesn't take much forces, so if I just welded this seam and down into the gusset, I think it would be fine, but I think I'll do a test piece and see what it looks like on the far side. That wasn't great. So not the best welds. I need to knock off the mill scale. That was sloppy and lazy of me. I'll do that on the other ones, and I might up the voltage a bit. But no visible heat affected zone really. Yeah, a little bit, but pretty subtle. So I think that'll be fine for the real pieces. So let's do that. So I've got them clamped up and they're at the right angle, which is good because of course these aren't perfect. There's actually a little bit of a gap there, so it's good not to know not to trust it. I'm not going to weld it entirely at the moment. This is more of just tacking, so I can get the whole ring made and then come back in when I can move it into more convenient positions. Yeah, I think that'll do. So there's the first frame. It's nice and flat. Angles came out quite well. Some heat affected zones on the seams, but actually I think it looks really good. I'd forgotten that with mill scale it just gets kind of gray. I was imagining the rings of oxidation colors, which I thought would distract, but this, you know, just looks nice and crudely industrial, which, you know, that's the reason I call myself an industrial artist. So I think this is good. Now I just have to do the other two frames. So I got a bit carried away and welded up the first of the stands without remembering to film any of it, sorry. But, you know, just welding, wasn't that exciting. And it's all coming together okay, except I got this thin wall tube and it really distorted more than I expected, so it rocks a lot. Those bottom feet have really bent up into arcs. So I am going to have to get some self-leveling feet, which I was kind of thinking of anyway, but yeah, definitely. So I think I'll have to make a hardware store run to continue on that. And I can drill them into these. It won't be that bad, and for the other two I can drill them before it all gets welded, so that'll be a bit better. And then I'm still thinking stability might be a problem, so I put this crossbar a little bit higher up so I can drape some sandbags over that, is the idea. But yeah, it's coming together. I was a bit concerned that the tall frame might start to shake, so I temporarily mounted the test board up there just with C-clamps so I could run it, and so far it's been rock solid, so once I add those leveling feet, I think it's going to be just fine. And that's the tallest one, the others are considerably shorter, so if this one's fine, they're all going to be fine.